Hello and welcome to the Dogfight, a podcast dedicated to the London Spitfire and Overwatch League. Fasten your seatbelts and observe the no smoking sign because today we'll be discussing London's worrisome start to Stage 4, what London's future could be, and what the future Week 2 matches will look like. So, London started off the Stage 4 for the first season, and by golly, was it just was it? I guess it was expected, considering that I had actually predicted this exact thing would happen. If you listened to the last episode, I said they'd lose to Houston because they just can't seem to get over Houston's play style, as well as them just being slow to adapt, and then losing to NYXL because they're the best team in the league. It kind of happened. The Houston game was pretty bad, especially. There was some really unacceptable stuff happening. The team just looked not there at all. I mean, towards the end of the match, they did look like they were trying to pick it up a little bit, but that's a little late to be trying to like pick it up and actually start playing like a team. And it was just really bad. Birdwing was losing a lot of Widow duels to Linkser, and I think at that point, it's just like, okay, you're losing these Widow duels, you're not being very effective on the Widow, just get off the Widow. But London is, they have this problem where like they'll just beat their heads against the wall and try to make a comp work, instead of like just switching to something else. It just makes it really frustrating to watch because you're seeing it's like, okay, but Osan on Sombra, it doesn't work. Why are you still running it? The Widowmaker isn't working. Why are you still running it? You're trying to dive into a Bridget when we have seen in the day previous diving into a Bridget doesn't work. Why are you still doing that? So it's just they're just trying to do this stuff over and over again even though it's not working. And it just makes it really frustrating. And Houston was just not good. I did get to see a little bit of Bridget that game, or I guess Brigitte, if I'm going to be pronouncing it properly. We did see a little bit of her. I think Prophet was the one flexing over to her. I'm not sure how well London looked with her because they only swapped over to her at like the very last few minutes of a round before Houston would win it, and it didn't look that great. But that was only a very small time window. And yeah, there's not a lot I can say. I mean, that's just not what you want to show, especially after you cut a promo before the match saying like, yeah, we lost to Houston before, we lost to LA Gladiators before, but not this time. We've learned from our mistakes, and then this match happens. It's like you clearly didn't learn from your mistakes. You're still doing the same thing. You're playing into Houston's hands with how you play, and you're not changing anything up. You just want to just do dive and play dive into an anti-dive, close-knit team in a meta that is all about anti-dive now, and more about sort of longer, drawn-out fights through Reinhardt and Zarya and Bridget and stuff like that. It was just really frustrating, especially since this is yet another loss to Houston, a team that I think on paper London Spitfire should be able to beat, but the cohesion is just not there. As for New York Excelsior, that game was better. It was very close despite the 1-3 scoreline, and I think that's good. London was showing a little bit of their Stage 1 selves that day. They couldn't win though, and it's that's kind of frustrating. But Josen was getting picked off a lot. I saw him just getting picked off early a lot at the time. Birdwing looked better. Birdwing, he looked really bad against Houston, but he definitely picked it up he looked like he was really trying against New York, which is good. Um, but yeah, they still kept trying to run dive when sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not. But they just kept trying to do this thing over and over again, and they're just too slow to adapt, and I think too slow to also just execute strategies. I've noticed a lot that London takes a while to take the first point, or just to take a point in general. On maps like Volskaya, and this is mostly for last stage, but this also happened in the matches this weekend. Was on defense they can sometimes just get rolled on a point, like easy first take, you know. But then you go to have London attack that same first point, they have to get through it a couple times, 2 times, 3 times maybe, before they can actually crack open that point. They're not operating as sort of this big cohesive unit that the other team demonstrated to have you lose that first point, And it's kind of frustrating, it's just like you're kind of supposed to be the better team in a lot of these matchups and everything. You're supposed to be really strong. How come you're getting rolled on these defensive points and then you're not able to do the same? You're just kind of slow to adapt, and that's kind of their problems, I suppose, switching over this topic. So London has problems. Stage 1, we didn't really see a lot of those problems because they were, it was a brand new environment. No one was really sure what to do, and London, I think, capitalized on the fairly stale meta of Mercy just being super strong, as well as them really relying on their own individual skill and not really thinking much in terms of tactics or anything like that. Also, probably, we had, I think, a much better environment because we had Rascal and Fisher in the lineup as well to sort of fall back on in case anything did go wrong or we did want to run some sort of alternate strategy. Stage 2 comes along, Fisher is out, Rascal is out, Bishop is out. So now we have only like a couple of coaches, and we're down 2 spots in the roster. Stage 3 comes along, Bergring is hurt. Tizzy comes along, but we have not seen Tizzy once, despite I think that he may improve some of the team's issues on stage, and I'll continue to say that until he is played. And you do bring a Gape back into the fold, but there doesn't really seem to be much difference, and you really struggle with this Spitfire iteration of stage 3. So for stage 4, they're displaying problems still, and it's problems that really haven't really gotten fixed a lot. There's inconsistency within the game. They're slow to adapt, and they're just dedicating themselves to one style of play. It's pretty one-dimensional. They're going to run dive, gestures, and whoever is playing Diva is going to jump onto the supports, and then everyone's going to jump on and just fight and try to outskill everybody. And that's about it, Inconsistency, I think that's on the players and team cohesion. You have to be able to pump out numbers at a consistent level. Bergring is extremely streaky. Sometimes he will do well, sometimes he will do not. When he does not do well, it really puts London in a bad spot, because you basically down a guy, or I guess half a guy, and you're really just relying on someone to play super duper good that day, and that's not good. You can't do that, and it messes up team cohesion. It messes up your results. And they're slow to adaptation. I think that's on the coaches. You have to be able to adapt when the meta shifts. You have to be able to adapt in the game when you see that something is going different from how you prepared. I think that's on the coaches. They have to be able to prepare multiple strategies and to be able to just be adaptable, And if your team is not doing that, that's kind of on you. And I think that the playstyle thing is on both of them. It's on players and the coaches. The coaches for being very complacent and just wanting to play towards their style, as well as the players, I think, for being too comfortable in one style and not wanting to try a lot of different things. And I've seen London play different styles. You know, they've done triple or quad tank before, and it's worked out really well. You know, they are capable of playing these different compositions, but I think that it's sort of like, if you've ever seen the movie Semi-Pro, there is a scene where Will Ferrell, he's on a basketball team, and Woody Harrelson, yes, Woody Harrelson, he's sort of being the coach, and he's having this basketball team run this play over and over again. He's drilling it into them until they throw up. And when they have no idea what to do, you know, when they kind of panic, that you know, that's sort of going to be their panic play. And I think dive is sort of Spitfire's panic play. You know, if they don't know what to do, if they're seeing something weird, if they're in a new meta and they don't really know how to react, they'll just do dive. And you know, they don't want to break out of that. They don't want to break out of what feels comfortable because it's comfortable. You know, why would you not? But sometimes what's comfortable does not always work. So they have problems. Now, there are, I think, some solutions that can really alleviate this. The question is, how drastic of a solution do you want to take? So the easiest, you know, going down from easiest to most extreme, easiest, fill that 12th spot in. You need a high, consistently talented DPS player. You know, you need someone who can play a pretty good number of heroes well. You need someone who can clock in day out and get the kills, play as a team, and be coordinated as a team to a fault. You know, they can't make a lot of mistakes. They can't slack off. You know, Bergering is great, but he's too streaky. I would really like to see someone who is at the same skill level of Bergering, maybe a little bit below. You know, I can sacrifice some talent for just consistency to maybe help out Prophet, help out Hureg maybe even. You know, if Hureg can support yet another consistently high-performing DPS, that would be great, because then Prophet could get some rest as well. But fill that 12th spot in. You need to fill that 12th spot in. I haven't been paying attention to Korean contenders. I'm sure there is a multitude of DPS that you could probably sign. You know, Rascal is a free agent. You know, Rascal's free. You know, he left Fuel. Maybe just get Rascal back. I think that would actually help Bergering a lot, because there was something about Bergering and Rascal when they're together. They're like the Wonder Twins. But then when you separate them, they're really not that great on their own. You know, as harsh as that is to say, I think that that's something that really does need to be considered. So that's the easiest. So the second, settle on starters that can play consistency from match to match. So we saw this some last stage, and that was mostly due to Spitfire was forced to play a consistent roster because Bergering was out and being injured. But what happened? The Spitfire played at least more consistency for most of their matches, even the ones that they lost. You know, in their losses, they took it to a full 5 maps. They were able to be extremely competitive against these other playoff teams, despite having lost them very narrowly. With a more consistent, you know, roster playing, you can really get a sense of, okay, here's how we were going to play. Here are the strats we're going to play for these maps against these teams. Be prepared. You know, if you're swapping out supports a lot, if you're swapping out your diva player every day or every week, you know, that doesn't help with cohesion, because, you know, Jester's going to be like, okay, well, who am I playing with this week? Am I playing with Fury or am I playing with Wuhyal? If I'm playing with Fury, I'm going to play playing differently than Wuhyal, you know, and everyone's constantly having to kind of shift gears, and that doesn't help breed consistency. So I think definitely get a roster that is consistent, settle on those starters, and then just play them. You know, if Bergering is not being very consistent, you have to sit him out, because it can't come down to just Bergering, you know, hoping that he will play up to the stage 1 form. And It sounds like I'm dumping on him a lot, and I don't want to do that. But it's just that I feel like that is an issue, with just that he is a streaky player, he is not a consistent player. That is an issue, and that can definitely cause problems. That's all I'm saying. He looked, to go back on sort of the match results, he did look better against New York Excelsior than in the Houston Outlaws, but the Houston Outlaws was a really ugly game, and that was something that was a level that you really shouldn't be displaying. So yeah, I'm not hating on Verdring or anything. I'm not saying we should get rid of him. He's an extremely talented player. He's a nice guy. I love Verdring. I think he's a fun, handsome boy, if you will. But it's something that needs to be looked at. So I guess the next big point in terms of solutions, get new coaches, is much as I hate to cry out for changes, Spitfire, I think, might have a coaching problem. The team is slow to adapt, the team struggles to adapt, and the team is having some really shaky results, especially since Bishop left. You won Stage 1 with Bishop, and then due to whatever internal issues there may have been, whatever was going on at that time, he left, and now you're starting to really struggle. So, if the current coaching system and the current coaching structure isn't working, you need to change it somehow. You need to get someone who is very smart, who can really help the team adapt and be adaptive and also be tactical. You need to be able to adapt to metas, and you need to be able to quickly come up with strategies and be like, okay, so here's how things are going to go, here's the most optimal thing to do, and you make them play to that. Don't say like, okay, well, if you're not sure, just play dive. Tell them, don't do dive, play quad tank, play triple support, single tank, play whatever. If I say jump, you say how high. You need, and I'm sure that's like that with the Spitfire coaches. I'm not a fly on the wall or anything, but I do think adaptability is a problem, and I think that is somewhat on the coaches' shoulders. So maybe they do need some new coaches. An interesting thought experiment I did kind of have as I was thinking about this over the weekend: would the Hurricane coaches actually do well in Spitfire? Who knows? They definitely showed, I think, more adaptability coming from, different patches, as well as being able to manage and coach a very talented, championship-worthy roster, and able to manage them and have them, consistently perform at a high level. The British Hurricanes only lost a few times, and even still, they were looking like one of the best teams in EU contenders, and they were, because they won EU contenders. So, yes, there is language barrier there, but they definitely showed their stuff in terms of, I think, coaching. And in Overwatch, I think coaching, wins matches most of the time. You can have skill, but if you have a coach that's super duper smart and can recognize talent and then utilize that talent accurately, you've already won the match before it even starts. Into the final, most extreme point, the thing that really shouldn't happen, like this is your worst case, last bottom line scenario. You've tried every other bullet point. You have tried every other solution. This is the last straw here. Just start tearing it down. Just start chipping away, making roster change after roster change, until you find something that works. Just build around your consistent players and build around Prophet. I think Prophet is London's golden boy. He is consistently doing some really good work. Even in the matches that we're losing, he's trying his damnedest to just pump out damage, to try and just be as impactful as he can, on whatever they need him to play. He'll play Junkrat, he'll play, I've seen him play Pharah some, he'll play Zarya, he'll play Brigitte, he'll play Tracer, he'll play Genji. He's your boy. You just build around him, build your staff, build your team around enhancing his ability and enhancing the ability of other consistent skilled players. And that's a big change, right? That's a big thing to ask. But if you're playing poorly, if you were the team just bought and designed to win an Overwatch League championship and you don't win that championship, that's kind of an issue, especially after watching how you kind of struggle in stage 3 and then go into stage 4 and just get demolished by Houston Outlaws. There are problems and you need to make fixes. The biggest, most dangerous fix is that, but I think that when push comes to shove, I think there definitely will be roster changes in Season 2. How big of changes to the London Spitfire there will be, I have no idea. I am hoping for some really good changes. I am hoping for, some more consistent players from the support angle to fill out that 12th DPS spot. Maybe show some more diversity in the tank department. That's what I am looking forward to for Season 2. I know it's very early still to talk about Season 2, but as far as my points for how that goes, that's at least what I'm hoping for in the grand scheme of things. But that's far away. Can London turn things around for the season playoffs? Sure. I mean, this was only week 1. They have a fairly middle-of-the-road schedule in terms of team strength. They do have to play against the LA Gladiators in week 3, I believe. Oh no, it's week 4. But they have to play against Fuel, Boston Uprising, Florida Mayhem, and Philly Fusion. So, a mixed bag of beatable and tough but beatable. But this could be the only 2 losses that they experience all stage, and they're back to that really strong form that everyone expects of them. But after these results, it's worrying, and we'll just have to see. But moving on to sort of the final segment where I talk about match previews. So London will be playing against the San Francisco Shock and the Seoul Dynasty. So their match against the San Francisco Shock will be Thursday, May 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern, and the Seoul Dynasty match will be Saturday, May 26th at 4 p.m. Eastern. So Shock first. Shock looked good. I didn't get to watch all of their week 1 matches, but they brought some fight. They did lose 1-3 to LA, but they beat Seoul Dynasty 3-1. They looked pretty confident. They have Architect and Super and Sinatra, and they have this really sort of gelling roster, and their new additions seem to be definitely performing to a level that's improved San Francisco. I think you definitely have to ask, can London handle them? I don't know. Part of me says that Architect and Sinatra will definitely cause London some issues. Another part of me says that, well, that's only 2 highly rated players, maybe 3 if you count in someone like Super or Moth. Is Moth their support player? I can't remember. There's too many people. Yeah, yes, it is Moth. That's maybe 2 to 3 people versus 6, maybe 5 considering maybe 4 to 5 considering some people on London will probably underperform. But yeah, I don't know. I think London can win. I think San Francisco Shock has never really been too intimidating for London, even with some new roster additions. I think that they'll just have to look out for Architect or look out for Sinatra or whoever is sort of the ball carrier, so to speak, for San Francisco. Other than that, it shouldn't be too difficult. I predict 3-1 to 3-2. Well, actually, if it goes to 3-2, that might be a tad difficult, you know, considering just our track record with, you know, with control maps. Oh yeah, they're playing on Oasis. Yeah, that's definitely gonna be 3-1 for sure. Actually, I don't know. They have looked better on Oasis recently, thanks to all those map 5s in stage 3. But yeah, I don't know. I think London should be able to beat San Francisco. Seoul, on the other hand, is another interesting story. So Seoul also went 0-2 in the first week. They lost to San Francisco and LA Valiant. So also kind of trying to look for redemption, kind of trying to pick themselves up after a really shaky stage 3. You know, London has shown time and time again that they can step up and overtake Seoul. Stage 3 was really close though. You know, stage 1 and 2 we rolled them 4-0. You know, stage 3 we beat them on Oasis, but it was a very close series. This time, I don't know. They're trying some really interesting thing where Ruja Hong is now playing the main tank role. Okay, I mean that's odd, but I mean, you know, if you want your leader in game as well as 2 other, you know, skilled supports, I mean, hey, it could work. I mean, I can picture crazier things happening in Overwatch League. You know, but I think the issue is Seoul going to be able to step up and be more consistent? And is, you know, same thing for London. Are they going to be able to step up and be like, okay, we've beat you before. We have like this crazy undefeated streak against you guys. You know, we're gonna take it to you and beat you again. You know, the question I guess is, will London be up to form? You know, Birdring is still, I think, somewhat recovering from his wrist injury. You know, I'm not sure how the team is going to work around, you know, Bridget and this sort of new, you know, less divey meta. You know, there's a lot of maybes up in the air, and I'm really not good at determining a decision off of a lot of maybes. I think I will say London will beat Seoul. London will beat Seoul because I think Seoul is one of the few teams London just is so intimately familiar with inside and out. And the maps, I think, favor London. London is fairly decent on King's Row. They kind of struggle sometimes with it, but when they're on King's Row, they look really good. They are really familiar with Hanamura. I think Lijiang Tower is also one of the better control maps for London, and London is also fairly good at Watchpoint Gibraltar. So I think they can beat Seoul. The question is how much. I think it might go to a close 5 maps. You know, they might falter on King's Row. They might falter on Lijiang Tower. You know, who knows? They might even falter on Hanamura, considering their issues with racing against the clock to capture and break open the first point. But I think they can do it. I'm going to say 3-1 to 3-2 for Spitfire. It should be a 2-0 week, I think. It'll be close maybe against Dynasty. It might be even close at some parts against San Francisco. But I think London can come together and they can really squeeze it out. I think that week 1 was a rough lesson to be learned for Spitfire, but I think, you know, they've fallen off the horse several times. This time they're going to dust themselves off and they go, okay, now I know how to ride this horse. You know, sure, I'm on a plane. I don't know why a plane is riding a horse, but you know, don't worry about it. The point is, London's going to come out and they're going to get this 2-0 week, and they're going to restore my faith and the fan base's faith in them. So tune in for that. But I think that's all the rambling I'm going to do today. I'm sorry that I bored you enough with my ravings. So please put your tray table up and return your seats to their full upright positions, because we're coming in for a landing. So thank you for listening to our podcast, and we hope we see you in the skies or real soon. Also make sure to follow the show on Twitter and whatnot. I don't have a thing with me, but yeah, just look around in links in the description and stuff. we'll probably have it there. You know, just follow us on Twitter. Also follow Bodied, our sister podcast. I host that along with Frozen Creek and sometimes a few others. Mostly it's just Frozen Creek nowadays, but we talk about other Cloud9 goings on. You know, Cloud9 more of the overall scope of what they're doing in every facet, and not just, you know, Overwatch as is the case here. But definitely tune into that, and yeah, that'll do me. So thank you and good night.